Welcome back to the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast. Let's see here. We have 6 games on the Monday, November 4th slate. Not a whole lot of games, but a pretty decent slate. Lots of news to be waiting on. Obviously, there's not very many lines out at the moment. Looks like we only have about 3, so about half of the games actually have a line on them at the current time. Let's see. Of course, what we'll do first, begin with the games, talk about the spreads, talk about the totals, talk about, obviously, what the injury news is going on. Obviously, like I said, there's lots to talk about. Begin with the Pistons at the Wizards. No line on this one. Obviously, Derrick Rose has already been ruled out. Reggie Jackson is already out. Looks like Tim Frazier is doubtful. But a questionable is Blake Griffin. So Blake Griffin might actually be making his debut tomorrow, which would be pretty crazy. I'm not really sure if they would, ease him in. I'm sure he's going to be on some kind of, pitch count, minutes limit. We'll kind of have to see how that one goes. But again, no line on that one at the moment. That is a game that I really do like. There's quite a few player options in that game that we'll be able to utilize quite a bit. So one to watch out and probably talk more about that one tomorrow. Next, we have another game that obviously has some really good DFS implications as we have the Pelicans going to Brooklyn to face the Nets. We know the Pelicans have the crazy pace. Obviously, this one doesn't have a line on it at the moment. I'm guessing it's because Derek Favors is questionable. They're going to wait and see if he's going to play. It looks like Brandon Ingram has passed all of his concussion protocol. He only played 15 minutes last game. So that one will be something to watch out for. We need to see if Derek Favors is playing. So there's no line on that game as well. Game number 3, we have the Bucks going to take on the T-Wolves. We have Milwaukee minus 6.5 here with a 230.5 total. Pretty nice big total on this one. We know the Wolves actually run with a little bit of decent pace. The Bucks run with good pace. Obviously, the T-Wolves are going to be without Karl Anthony Towns for one more game. This game should be his last game of the suspension. So that one will be interesting to say the least. Next, we got the Rockets, who just got hammered by the Miami Heat. We're down 35 points in the first quarter. Good Lord. Wrecked every DFS lineup that I had. Thank you, guys, for that one. Either way, that game is Houston minus 6.5 here on the road. Not really sure why they're minus 6.5 on the road here against the Grizzlies at home. 234 on that total. Looks like Jaren Jackson Jr. has already been ruled out. So that one is a little bit interesting for this game. Let's see here. 76ers at Phoenix. Philadelphia minus 1 on the road here with a 223 total. Once again, the 76ers are without Joel Embiid. This is his last game of his suspension. So he will be back after this one as well. And then finally on the nightcap, the Trailblazers at the Warriors. I should say, the AAA, whatever you want to call them, Warriors here. Draymond has already been ruled out again. He's actually supposed to miss another game or 2, maybe even more. And then D'Angelo Russell, there is no line, obviously, because they're waiting to see if he's going to play. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm still kind of getting over allergies. Felt like I was coming down with the flu on Friday. Had to do the old remedy, come home from work, literally drink 3 gulps of NyQuil, be asleep by 6 o'clock, and slept till 6:30 or 7. I feel great, but I'm still kind of have the aftershocks. Either way, so that's your nightcap. Obviously, that one will have a few Blazers that you want to take. Obviously, I'm going back to the well with CJ. Dame, of course, has been just totally killing it quietly. Nobody's been taking him. But he's been just totally murdering everything. For the Warriors, yeah, that's a whole nother ball game. All right, so 6 games, like I said, not a whole lot to talk about as far as that, but we'll go ahead and get into the positions. Let's go ahead and start with the point guard spot. James Harden is going to be one of those games where we talked about last year whenever he didn't have CP3. Because guess what? Russell Westbrook is resting this game. They've already They've already said it. It's already been reported. He's not playing tomorrow. I'm sorry, I'm recording this on Sunday night, so he is not playing tomorrow, which would be Monday. He is not playing in this game against the Grizzlies, so this is going to be the Harden show once again. So Harden at 10-8, I don't think that's near enough for a game with this fast, this fast of pace. Grizzlies are playing the fourth fastest pace in the NBA. We know the Rockets are going to play with pace. They're going to want to probably come back and obviously they just took a very big loss for tonight, I'm saying. So this will be one that's, Harden, 10-8. I'm sure he's going to be uber chalk, but especially on only a 6-game slate. So just one of those ones that you'll probably just have to pay for and find value elsewhere. I mean, to top it off, Memphis is allowing the second most fantasy points to the point guard spot. It's just going to be a total smash spot for him as well. So anyway, Kyrie at 9.5. The Pelicans allowing the most fantasy points to the point guard spot. 50 or more in his last 3 or 4. You can't really, he started off really slow last game, and then came on really strong in the second half, finished with a triple-double, ended up with 54, I think, fantasy points in their last game there. He's just getting it done. So 9.5 on Kyrie. We know the Pelicans are going to play with a lot of pace. They haven't been guarding that point guard spot really good. But Drew Holiday is back, so that might slow him down a smidge. So with that being said, that's kind of up to you, but I mean, it's going to be a fast game. So Kyrie at 9.5, Ben Simmons at 8.5. Obviously, no Embiid last game, put up 47.8 against Phoenix. Was it Portland? I think they played Portland. Anyway, either way, he played over 30 minutes, put up 47.8 fantasy points. Looked like the old Ben Simmons. I know he put up a few duds, but of course Embiid had played in those games, so he gets one more game here without Embiid. And he is playing – no, that's what it is. He's playing Phoenix Monday night. That's right. Okay. So he just put up 47.8 against Portland, which is pretty dang good. Portland's a pretty decent defensive team. So, Ben Simmons at 8.5, I think that's cheap. I'm not really sure why his price didn't go up any. Obviously, the price makers were kind of drunk when they made his price, knowing that Embiid's not playing. So here's Simmons against Phoenix at 8.5K. I don't really see how you can pass that one up. Dame Lillard, 8.9. Like I said, over 50 fantasy points in all but one game so far. Golden State allowing the 7th most fantasy points to the point guard spot. And that was before D'Angelo took over the actual lead point guard spot role. It probably got worse after the one game that he started at point guard because he has a 128.4 defensive rating, which is just astronomically bad. Again, if he doesn't play, Dame is going to probably murder this team already. That's something you got to think of. I mean, the Warriors are not good. The team that they're putting together to play right now is not good. They're going to be without Draymond anyway. Dame at 8.9, you got to, whatever. Going down a little bit more, Ja Morant, 6.6. Again, Houston doesn't play a lot of defense. More than likely, it's probably going to be Eric Gordon starting again. I'm sure it'll be Harden, Eric Gordon, House, PJ Tucker, and Capella is my guess. But Ja Morant at 6.6 here at home against Houston. I think you can't really afford to pass this one up. It's going to be an up-tempo game. It's got a really big total already, 234, highest on the board at the moment. So Ja Morant, I feel like he can probably put on a show. 39.3 and 50 in his last 2 games at home. They're without Jaren Jackson, who's not going to take up some of that usage. So this could easily turn to the Ja Morant show here. So I don't really think you can look past him at 6.6K. I think it's a very, very fair price. To round out the point guard spot, IT3, Isaiah Thomas at 4.9K. He's balling out really. Still, he put up 33 fantasy points in 19 minutes last game against Minnesota. They got blown out. He didn't even get garbage time run at that. So they got blown out to Minnesota. Detroit is basically point guardless right now. It looks like Luke Kennard could probably be the starting point guard tomorrow, as they're missing Rose, Reggie Jackson, Tim Frazier. So IT3 at 4.9. Hopefully he gets up into that 25-minute range like he was before. He was getting into the 21s, 23s, and then he only played 19 minutes last game. Hopefully, if the game is the way it should be and relatively close, we see him get 24 to 25, 26 minutes, hopefully. Obviously, we see the upside that he brings. He's basically done really good so far in his first 3 games. He's taken 14, 11, and 14 field goal attempts, and all of them he's shooting the ball really well. So IT3, like that one as well. Moving over to the shooting guard spot, Brad Beal, 9-4 versus Detroit again. 33.4 usage so far on the season, 110 offensive rating, also with a 120 defensive rating on the flip side, so he's really not been playing a whole lot of defense as well. But again, he's just been an offensive juggernaut so far this season. So Brad Beal, 9-4, he's expensive, but he's been getting it done. CJ McCollum at 6.1, I'm going right back into the well. He did me wrong the night before last. Dame kind of stole the show against Philadelphia. He had a tough matchup, though. I'm pretty sure it was either Matisse Thybulle or Josh Richardson. So he had a bad matchup, but he's gotten whole lot better of a matchup here, of course, against Golden State. Golden State allowing the 5th most to the shooting guard spot. He's played 36 or more minutes in all but one game, 27.4 usage in his last 3 games. I could go on and on and on. 34.4% in his last 2. So, he's getting the usage. He's getting the shots. I think he only took 16 last game. But the 3 games before that, he was taking over 22. One game he took 26. This could easily turn into the CJ show if it happens to turn into somewhat of a lead. Dame might get to sit a little bit more extended. So CJ at 6.1, his price actually went down $500, so you're getting a little bit of a discount on him as well. So CJ, of course, is going to be in play. Luke Kennard, of course, like I said, is playing the point guard spot right now for Detroit. He's $5K, played 37 minutes, 34.3 fantasy points here against Brooklyn. They don't have anybody else to play. Langston Galloway, I don't think they don't really. He did play. They did give him minutes. He played 28 minutes, but Luke Kennard was the most, other than Drummond, he was the guy that they went to. I like Luke Kennard quite a bit. Another one I think you could look at here is Dylan Brooks in that Memphis and the Houston game. Houston's allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to shooting guards at the time. He's put up over 20 fantasy points in his last 3. We know he's going to shoot. The dude loves to shoot. Hopefully he can put together a good shooting night. And like I said, at 4.2K, over 20 fantasy points in his last 3. I don't think it's a bad option. Of course, if you're doing that game stack, you're going to want some Brooks. So moving on, Langston Galloway, like I said, he's kind of like a free square. I mean, he's 3.2K. Again, he's going to get the minutes, 28 minutes last game. He only put up 20.3 fantasy points. But again, they have no bodies. They're really hurting. I mean, if Griffin comes back and then they have the 1-2 with the Griffin and Drummond, you probably won't be looking near as much as the value for the guards for Detroit, because then the usage is just going to fall all pretty much on Griffin and Drummond. Basically, we'd have to see how much Griffin is going to play, because that's obviously going to play a role as well. Either way, Galloway at 3.2, he's cheap. He's cheap enough that you got to look at him. And in that same sense, Bruce Brown Jr. Played 40 minutes last game. Had pretty much one of his best games of his career so far. 39 fantasy points, shot 8 of 20, 22 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals. Has a great matchup here with Washington. Again, if Griffin plays, it'll be we need to see how many minutes he's going to play. And if he's only going to play, 20 minutes, some of these other guys are going to have a lot of value still. So Bruce Brown, he's still there. Moving on to the small forward spot, Giannis at 11.3. I don't need to elaborate on Giannis. He is who he is. Brandon Ingram at 7.2. Like I said, that Pelicans and Nets game is going to be really fast-paced. It's going to be a good one for fantasy, and Ingram, of course, is a piece that I want to have. Only played 15 minutes last game because of the concussion, but Brooklyn is allowing the sixth most fantasy points to the small forward spot. He's carrying 27.3% usage rate on the season. I've been all over Brandon Ingram all season so far. Won't stop here. We'll have some. Chris Middleton at 6'8". I think this is interesting. I really, really, really think Chris Middleton is interesting here, and this is a game or a slate, I should say, that I might have a little bit more. I really haven't played Chris Middleton a whole lot this year, but I really like him on this one. I think that Rob Cove is probably going to have to guard Giannis because usually Robert Covington plays the 4. Giannis, plays the 4. So I think, Rocco is going to be on him, and that's going to leave Middleton open, I think, a little bit more. Over 30 fantasy points in 4 of his 6. Minnesota is allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the small forward spot. He's playing well over, 29, 30 minutes. So Chris Middleton, I think, is a really good play and one that I don't think a lot of people will go to. So that's one that I'll probably be looking at quite a lot, quite hard. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Josh Hart, 5.1, 26-plus minutes in all games. Of course, he put up 41.3 in their last game against OKC. However, again, Ingram did only play 15 minutes, so he got a little bit of extended run there. But still yet, Hart has been getting tons of run all season so far. So Josh Hart at 5'1", still think that price is totally favorable for him. He's got nice upside. Joe Harris at 4.8, over 30 minutes a game, 25 and 36.3 in his last 2. He's getting the up-tempo game with the Pelicans who don't play defense. Joe Harris, I think, is a totally fine play. Mario Hezonja at 3.7, put up 37.5 last game, 11 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Had just one of them games where he just went out there and balled out. I've said it before. He has decent upside. When he gets the minutes, he's going to continue to. They didn't have Hassan Whiteside last game. They played Skal Labissiere, and they really didn't have much down low. So it looks like Hassan is going to be back for this game. So. He probably gets a bump down a little bit, obviously, but it's still at 3.7. He's still cheap enough to play. Moving along to the power forward, Tobias Harris at 7K, 42.3 last game. He's now put up over 40 fantasy points in 3 of 5. Phoenix allowing the 8th most fantasy points to the power forward spot. We know they don't have Embiid. Tobias Harris is absolutely going to be in play. Hashimura for Washington at 5.7. This is a big bounce-back spot for him. Went 2 of 11, only scored 6 fantasy points in the blowout with Minnesota. Hashimura, I'm definitely going to be looking to play for Washington. Eric Pascal at 5K put up 34.5 fantasy points, played 35 minutes. Draymond is out again. He's likely going to play the 4 again. Gets a decent matchup here with Portland again, who's starting, Mario Hezonja at the 4, or Anthony Tolliver, I should say, sorry. So Pascal at, 5K, 25 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. Went 10 of 18 from the field, didn't even make a three-pointer, was 0 from 5 from three-point land, and still scored, 25 points. So he was one of those highly touted, rookies coming out of college. So Pascal, I'm totally fine with. And, again, the Golden State's going to have to play somebody. And he was one of the main guys that came out and that balled out for him. So, totally fine with him. Brandon Clark at 4.8 for Memphis, 40.8 in 22 minutes versus Phoenix in their last game. Obviously, that kind of displays the upside that he brings. They're obviously, like I said, Jaren Jackson Jr. is already out. Valanciunas, they still, for some reason, are keeping him on a minutes limit. I think he played 24 minutes. He played 24 minutes last game. I don't think he's going to get over 26, even if they do bump him again. So Brandon Clark is absolutely going to have to play. Nice spot here again, of course, with Houston at home. So at 4.8, I'm totally fine with Brandon Clark. I'll probably have plenty of him. Markeith at 4K. If Blake plays, I think I'm probably going to have to bump him. But he's still a cheap play, getting 30 minutes or more. Not really sure how many more minutes he's going to get, of course, if Blake happens to play. So obviously that's something that you'll want to pay attention to if Griffin does happen to play. Markeith probably happens to only see maybe in the 20-ish, low 20-ish minutes range. So that's something you want to watch for. Bertans at 3.9. Again, I'd like to basically target just about anybody against Detroit. So Bertans at 3.9 still got some decent value. James Ennis at 3.2 played 25 minutes last game, 23.8. He was on my other pod. Last game, obviously, I said he got a small little bump without Embiid. It looks like it still stays true. Whew, you have to excuse me. I'm about to die over here, coughing a lung up. Anyways, James Ennis at 3.2, kind of a free square there. Obviously, like I said, no Embiid. He got a small little bump. 25 minutes last game, 23.8 fantasy points. Now has put up over 24.3 in his last two. So, really cheap, getting decent minutes, and, putting up over fantasy point per minute there. So, it's pretty good numbers. Moving along to the center spot, Drummond doesn't really need a whole lot of talk here. He's 10.4. I'm wondering, though, if Blake does play, if that takes away a little bit of his usage. Obviously, it has to, because Blake is a usage guy. Blake wants the ball. So, that'll be interesting to see if Blake actually does make his debut. Does that? You have to believe that hurts Drummond's fantasy value just a smidge. So that'll be interesting to see. Thomas Bryant at 7.4 on the flip side of that, played 30 minutes or more in all games. 46.5 in his last home game versus Houston, put up a nice big game. Detroit is allowing the seventh most fantasy points to the center spot. Washington really doesn't have anybody else. So at 7.4, Thomas Bryant, more than likely he's going to see over 30 minutes as long as Washington can stay in the game, and I think they will because Detroit's not that good. So Thomas Bryant I'm totally fine with. I actually really like it quite a bit. Again, Jonas Valanciunas at 6K. No Jaren Jackson. Hopefully he plays at least 24 minutes. He might see more. We know that Houston, I'm sorry, but, Capella is a big dude, but Jonas is a really big dude. So I believe that Jonas has some nice value here, especially, like I said, against Houston. So Val at 6K, I'm fine with. Georgia DeJang at 3.3 did not even have a price bump of any sort. Played 24 minutes, 39.5 fantasy points against Washington. Of course, they had no Karl Anthony Towns, and he still balled out. Milwaukee's allowing the 8th most fantasy points to the center spot at the moment. Said this before. It seems like Brook Lopez doesn't really care about rebounding, doesn't really care about boxing out, doesn't really care about playing down low that much. So DeJang, if he gets another start at 3.3K, I don't really think you can afford to not play him with no Karl Anthony Towns. It's kind of one of those free squares again. So another one to look for down here in the value range at 3.1 is Jahlil Okafor. Obviously, if Favors happens to sit again, it looks like he will get another start. He's had back-to-back 38-point fantasy point outputs. So the last two games, 38 points apiece. Pretty dang good for a guy who's 3.1K. It's almost like he's priced as if Favors is going to play. But if he doesn't, it's just, I don't see how you can't play him as well, especially in this fast-paced game. Brooklyn allowing the 6th most fantasy points to the center spot. So, again, a couple free squares there at the center spot with DeJang and Okafor. It's real thin, though, for the center spot as well. Like I said, all I have here is Drummond, Bryant, Jonas Valanciunas, Georgia DeJang, and Okafor. I really don't like a whole lot. It's only 6 games, So, obviously, your main play is probably looking at Harden at 10-8 with no Russ. I don't see how you can't really love that one. Kyrie at 9.5, Dame, John Moran at 6'6", IT3, Brad Beal, CJ McCollum. Luke Kennard, Dylan Brooks, Langston Galloway. Of course, like I said, that one is kind of one of those iffy ones. That's just value play. He's going to see the minutes. Bruce Brown Jr., same way. Giannis at 11-3. Brandon Ingram at 7-2. Chris Middleton, I really like in this spot. Josh Hart as well. Joe Harris, same kind of way, getting lots of minutes. Up-tempo with the Pelicans. A nice spot here for an up-paced game. Mario has zoned you at 3.7, kind of rounded out the small forwards. Power forward, Tobias at 7K. You got to like it without, no Embiid. Hashimura at 5.7. Eric Pascal at 5K. Brandon Clark, I really like at 4.8. Like I said, no Jaren Jackson Jr. Markeith at 4K. Bertans at 3.9. James Ennis at 3.2. So that was all of my plays, just kind of like a little bit of a recap. I haven't really settled on a roster monster yet. Usually it's whoever's the picture of my pod. And to be flat out honest with you, I'm recording the pod right now, but usually I don't make that decision until I decide to post the pod. So you guys will know that in the morning whenever the pod is posted. Anyway, enjoy your Monday. Only 6 games, like I said, so not a whole lot of news to watch out for. So check in on that. And again, have a wonderful Monday.